Today, we're going to be talking about church. Today, the title of the sermon from Galatians is A Call to Christian Community. And so we're going to be talking about church today. To start this off, I'm going to talk about something a little serious because it's a challenge, and it's also very much connected to our message today about looking out for each other. There is a gentleman that has been coming to our church a couple of times over the last month. His name's Ryan Gibbs, and he sits right back there about where Brandon's at right now. And Ryan has come a couple of times, and last night he was admitted to the hospital with a brain bleed. And he's asking for our prayers. And as a church, that's exactly what we're going to do. I know that many of you have not connected with Ryan, and so you wouldn't know to pray for him, so I'm sharing that. And we will be praying for him today and continue to pray for him. A call to Christian community. So Paul, in this letter, we're going to just kind of back up. Galatians is a very short letter, and it's written to the churches that are across Galatia. And here in this letter, Paul does a couple of things. First of all, there's a problem. So Paul goes in and he's going to write to this church. And he writes to this church and he lets them know who he is, why he has authority to speak into their life in the first place. Right? I don't guess any of you really like people to just come into your life and just tell you what to do. Right? Jace, you live in an apartment? Is that correct? You don't have somebody else in your apartment complex that's just going to come by, knock on your door and say, hey, I want to inspect your apartment so I can go in there and tell you what to do. That wouldn't fly over real well, right? It wouldn't fly over well for me. It's important who's telling me what I can and can't do and who I give permission to do that. So Paul, he comes in and he says, listen, you have a problem and this is why it is me that needs to address it. He defends his apostleship. He says, I am the Apostle Paul. Not only am I partly responsible for the foundation of these churches because he is the missionary that came and helped to plant these churches, not only that, but I am an apostle. That's important. Now, as we go out in life these days, you will go around, you'll see different churches and stuff like that. And sometimes I entertain the idea. I'm Pastor Danny. But sometimes I entertain the idea because biblically there's different names that are given for pastors. In the Bible, Jesus talks about pastors, and then Paul writes in both 2 Timothy and Titus that this is the role of pastors and elders and stuff, and they gives the criteria to become one. James talks about pastors and teachers. Peter talks about pastors. So it's an ordained role, and you'll see that people will go around and they'll talk about, I'm Bishop so-and-so, or I'm Overseer so-and-so. Those are great names. Sometimes I kick it around, I don't know if I would sound as good as Overseer Danny, but I think about it, that sounds cool. But you know what's not there is apostles. Yeah, you will see it in some of our modern day churches. Somebody will be like, I'm apostle so-and-so. That's not one of the roles that is continued on. That's not one of the roles that's defined as, okay, well, this is the criteria to become apostle. No, the apostles were a title that was given directly to people by Jesus himself. To the original disciples and to Paul and to no one else. They're the ones that were ordained by Christ himself for this role. And Paul starts out this letter and he says, I am an apostle. I am the one that Jesus chose to do this. And so I am writing you to direct this. So he has this authority to speak into their problem. And their problem is that they are being told by other people that they need to do more. They need to do more. That if they want to be right with God, they don't need to just be saved. They don't need just Jesus, that they need to do more. Jesus and Paul's like, no, you just need Jesus. There was a psalm years and years ago called All You Need Is Love. All you need is love. And I am one of the people that believe that. I do. I believe in, my wife will tell you, when I talk about our marriage, I'll sometimes say, all you need is love. But I have learned that is really based off your definition of love. Because when I'm talking about love, I am not talking about just the romantic, gooey butterfly feelings that you get when you're first dating. I'm not talking about just, physical attraction. I mean, in my definition of love, it's all rolled in with loyalty, with commitment, hard work. Everything's involved in my definition of love. For some people, they're like, well, love is not enough, and I believe it's because their definition of love is so small. That it's just defined around maybe lust or around a good time. And so if those things are not there, they're not on the board, then no, it's not enough. Well, in the same manner, this community right here were being convinced that Jesus was not enough. That they needed something more to be close to God. They needed something more to be righteous. And Paul's like, no, you just need Jesus. You just need Christ. And then, as the last couple of weeks in this letter, we've looked at that Paul, once he had addressed the problem, he started talking to them about how they could grow closer in Christ, how they could deal with themselves. Today, he shifts up and he's done those things, and now he's going to talk about community, because Christianity, walking with Christ, growing in Christ, is not done in isolation. It's done in a community. So the first thing we're going to look at is this call to restore. In Galatians 6, 1 through 2, it says, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Here we see this first responsibility of the community to restore those who have fallen. And if you see up here, it says, brother, if anyone is caught in transgression. Well, this is important because, man, we're starting to talk about Christian community. We're starting to talk about the church. So we need to really understand how this is defined right here, because this is a make or break statement right here. This is a make or break statement for the church on the whole, and we see a lot of times it's a break statement in churches all across our country, all across the world. This is a break statement because there's some misunderstanding about what this is. If someone is caught in a sin, what does that mean, caught in a sin? Over in my community where me and Mary live, last year we had hurricanes. I guess it just hit our community. I don't know if it hit anybody else. Did anybody else feel the effect of that? Okay, good. It wasn't just our little community, right? It was all of us. We felt the effects of these hurricanes. During this time, the first hurricane came. I can't remember the order now. Was it Milton first? Helene. Okay, yeah. So the first one came, and then when the second one was coming, everybody was like ramped up in my community. And so some of my neighbors came around, and they were like, hey, we need to share our telephone numbers with each other so that we could communicate for those that were staying. I was like, that's a great idea. Wish I'd come up with it. I'm the pastor. But no, this is a great idea. Like community, good neighbors, so on and so forth. So now I am connected into this thread of I don't know, 18 different people, and I only know 2 of their names. And since the hurricane, I get routine messages, and these routine messages are like, we are all part of a neighborhood watch. And they are telling all of us, and we don't even know each other's names, mind you, like they're put out information. It's like, did you see what time so-and-so in the brick house came in last night? And I'm like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like, it's horrible. Like, we are in the neighborhood watch, and they are just sharing so much stuff about their neighbors and stuff, right? And I don't know if I'm not one of them. There's not enough detail. Maybe I'm the guy they're talking about that's playing the music too loud. I don't know, but there is all on these texts. This is not what this is. We're not to be a church that's on neighborhood watch, that's looking for what our neighbors are doing wrong. This idea, if someone is caught in a sin, that word could even better be translated as if someone falls into a snare. Okay? If someone falls into a snare in sin, then you're to help restore them. Now, who sets that snare? Is that us? Is that us? Is when someone new comes into our family, or we're sitting around just watching them like, I wonder what your weakness is. I laid out a few traps to see if you'll fall for it. There's some heroin in the bathroom. No, we're not the ones that lay out the snares. We're not the ones watching. You know who's laying the snares out? Satan. 1 Peter 5:8 describes Satan as, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. He's just watching him. You know what a lion does? If you've ever watched any of these animal kingdoms, these documentaries or anything, a lion will sit there and it will watch its prey, and it will look for a moment when they're not watching, when they're not looking. A lion could easily go up to anyone face to face and take them. It's got the strength, it's got the agility, it's got the speed, it's got the equipment to take on anyone, but it doesn't do that. It waits until its prey is at its weakest, when it's not looking in a blind spot, and it pounces. Normally when that prey is by itself, and it being the predator gets it, because that's when it's at its weakest. The Bible describes Satan as that lion that's just in the bushes watching for our weak moments, our blind spots, laying snares. And then when our brother falls into that snare, that's when we're called to come in to the situation, right? We're not called to be on watch. We're not called to look for weaknesses in our brothers and sisters. We're not called to set traps for our brothers and sisters. No. We're called to help them once they're in the snare. Now, the only time, and there's nowhere in the gospel where it says that we're to look around. What that sounds like, and a lot of churches interpret it sounds like we're watching out for them. Like we're going to look for weaknesses. The moment that you come in to this church, this family, and you start getting comfortable, that we're looking to see if maybe you're making a mistake. Maybe when you got out of your car this morning, I noticed that as you got out, some paper fell out and it looked like some scratch-offs. Oh, can't believe you. I already can tell that there's a weakness in you. You're a gambler. It's obvious. And I'm just watching for you to continue to make mistakes. I'm waiting for you to tell me how hard it is to pay your bills so I could judge you a little bit more. You got money to buy those scratch-offs. Right? Just waiting for those moments. That's not what we're called to do. We're not in judgment of other people. We're not supposed to judge other people. The entire gospel, the entire New Testament is full of declarations of us to not judge other people. Do not look for the speck in your brother's eye when you have a giant 2x4 in yours, right? We're not to go around judging people. The only singular time that the Bible talks about the fact that we're supposed to deal with somebody else's sin, that we're supposed to see somebody else's sin, is when it's committed against us. And then Jesus gives us the example of how to deal with that, but even that's in love. In Matthew 18:15, if someone has sinned against you, not you out looking for their sin, but if they have sinned against you, go and tell them their fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained a brother. Now after that, you go with someone else. But Jesus lays out this protocol. If they have sinned against you, if Jace jumps up and he slaps me, I'll take offense to that. And then, as long as that's a private occurrence, because if it happens here, we're going to address it. It hadn't happened, that's why we're addressing it now. But then I would go up to Jace, and we'll have a one-on-one. And sometimes that's hard. But in everything that we do, we're going to handle in love, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that, because that's what a church should be known for. We observe each other. How do we do this? If we're going to restore someone and we need to know how to restore them if they sin, what does that really look like if I'm not running around with a microscope running through their trash? This is what it looks like. A church is supposed to be a family, but not just a family, an active family. What I want you to picture this morning is a family that does things together, that lives life together, that goes out, and because Evan's here today, let's just jump down this road. They go out and they climb mountains together. You know, they climb mountains together. You ever seen anybody climbing a mountain? They'll go up and they'll put these thingamajobs in the cracks and everything else, and they'll tether their lines to it, and then the person below them will be tethered to them, and they'll put another thingamabob into the mountain and everything. And everybody's tethered to each other and tethered to the mountain as they climb up. And as you are a mountain climber, if you realize, or if you've seen, some of the most experienced mountain climbers in the world that have been climbing mountains over and over and over and over, sometimes they'll put their little thingamabob in a crack and that rock will give away and they'll fall, even the most experienced ones. But when they're climbing with someone else and they're tethered to them, their weight will be caught on that rope and they hold each other up. Sometimes it's the most inexperienced climber. Sometimes it's the most experienced climber. Sometimes it's just the person right in the middle. But when you're climbing up that mountain together, you realize that the mountain can be dangerous. It can be awesome. It can be fun. It can be exciting. It can be a lot of things, but it can also be dangerous. So can life. And if we're really doing what God wants us to do, we're doing it like a family that's doing it together. We're tethered together. And when someone falls, when someone stumbles, it's not because we're running through their trash. It's because we feel the tug on the line. Because we're doing it together. And we can help each other out. That passage says, it goes on to say in Galatians 6:2, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Now, you might say, and it'd be fair if you'd say this, because life is hard at times. We have a lot on our plate. We have a lot going on in our life. But you might say, I have enough burdens of my own right now. But here's the paradox of Christianity. And it truly is a paradox, but it is true. The more that we help others, the lighter our burdens become. Because it is what God desires of us. Paul goes on after saying, bear one another's burdens, so fulfill the law of Christ, to talk about the danger of pride. How are we going to help somebody else with their burden if we're not right ourselves? Now, you know what a burden is, right? Burden is more than you can handle. When I'm burdened, if I say this is too much of a burden on me, it has gotten to the point where I can't do it. It's beyond me. So when somebody else needs your help, when they're burdened, it's beyond them. They gotten to the point where they're at the end of their rope, where the load's too heavy. They need you to come alongside of them. But how are you going to come alongside of them if you're not capable? If you're not capable. You ever witness somebody drowning? It's horrible. But when somebody starts drowning, they start panicking, as they should. This is it. And when they're panicking, they're very, very violent. And they're not trying to hurt the person that's trying to save them, but they're just in a panic state, violently flailing around. And if you send somebody that can barely swim themselves out to save somebody that's drowning, they both will drown. It's just the truth. You need to be a really good swimmer to go out and be a lifeguard, because they'll take you down with you. To help restore someone, it's the same way. We have to be in a really good place. In Galatians 6:3-5, it says, for if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But each one of you test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor. For each will have to bear his own load. Paul warns us to be careful and when we seek to restore others, right? Because we need to be aware that to do that, to help other people out, we need to be in the right place. This is what Paul's been dealing with for the last couple of weeks when we were in Galatians 5. Paul wants us to be close to Christ. The closer we are to Christ, the safer we are from the devil, the safer we are from our own traps, the safer we are from falling into the same snare as someone else. But it can't be fake. It has to be real. Truth is, we're all on the same mountain. We're all trying to go up it, and we need to realize that. Sometimes we can come from a place of like, I can help somebody out because I got everything all together. But know that the mountain's dangerous. Life can be dangerous. Any one of us can slip at any moment. We need each other. We need each other. Life can come at us hard sometimes. So don't be overconfident. Don't be over-prideful. Take care of yourself. This connotation here is a repetitive of another verse in 1 Corinthians 10. In 10, 12 through 13 it says, "Therefore let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with temptation he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it." Know your place. Know your role. If you ever get to the point where you're thinking, okay, I can take this mountain on by myself and I'm never going to fall. I am completely competent. The Bible tells us, therefore, let anyone who thinks that they stand take heed lest they fall. We're always in a place of vulnerability. We all need Christ in every moment of every day. We need Him. And we need to stay in that place of where we realize that we need Him. We need to stay in that place of communion with Him. We need to stay in that place of where we're abiding in Him so that not only we can take care of ourselves, but those that are around us. Now, you might have noticed that it sounded almost like a contradiction at the end of this verse when it said, for each will have to bear his own load. That sounds like a contradiction. Here you are telling me to help my brother carry their burden, but now it's saying that each of us have to carry our own load, but those are two different things. A burden and a load are completely different things. A burden is something that's beyond my capability. It has went beyond me. I don't have the strength for it. I'm at the end of my rope. I can't handle it. A load is my responsibility. It's my work. It's what God's given me in my life to do. We all have different loads. We all have different ministries in our life. For us, the core of our ministry, no matter who you are, starts with our family. I have a responsibility to my family. I have a responsibility to protect. I have a responsibility to provide. I have a responsibility to contribute. That is a ministry. That is a load. That is what I have. It is the work that is before me. In the many, many passages, I just pulled out one, it talks about our work in the Bible. In 1 Corinthians 3, 12 through 15, it says, now if anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or straw, each one's work will become manifest, for the day will disclose it, because it will be revealed by fire, and the fire will test it. If that work that anyone has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward. And if anyone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, though himself will be saved, but only as through fire. This word work through here is just talking about that responsibility that we have in life, both to God and in our roles as people. So we do things and we have responsibilities, we have a load, but it's not a burden. And so each one of us is supposed to be taking care of our load, but sometimes somebody will come along and we've already went through Golden Corral and loaded up our plate, and somebody else will throw another piece of chicken on and the plate starts bending, right? It just becomes an overburden when it's too much, and now it's a burden. That's not what he's talking about here. He's just talking about our responsibility, a load. And he says, be careful, because we have to take care of our own load. We must be able to carry it if we're going to take care of someone else. Y'all ever been on a plane? How many of you have flown? Okay, how many of you have flown several times? Of those that have flown several times, how many of you carefully watch the stewardess and the flight attendants when they're going through the pre-flight stuff? I'm proud of you too. All right. When they're going through the pre-flight stuff and they tell you that your seat can be used as an inflatable and that the oxygen's going to drop down if we get into turbulence or if we're about to go down and so on and so forth. And there's this one part where they say if the oxygen mask drops down, then you should put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on the child, right? And I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit over-exaggerating, but I know that I've heard it many, many times. I'll hear some, and it's normally a woman's voice, not a judgment on women. I'm sure that there's men that think this way as well, but I'll hear some voice from somewhere around there. I ain't going to do that. I'd put it on my child first. Right?
Take care of the child if he can't breathe.
If you can't breathe. When that oxygen leaves that cabin, and it will in a hurry if there's any puncture in there, you will only have consciousness for a moment. You'll still be alive if you're unconscious, but unconscious you can't help that child. If that child goes unconscious while you're getting your mask on, that child's still alive, and you're still going to have time to get that mask on that child, but you must first get that mask on you. It's the same principle in Christianity. Sometimes we want to dive right in or think that we're capable of doing something, but we need to get that mask on first. We need to make sure that we're walking right with the Lord, so that not only are we benefiting ourselves and our family and all the things that we have a responsibility for, that load, but that we can help others, because that's what we've been called to do. It's the very same principle. The last thing that Paul talks about in this particular passage is this call to persevere. Call of perseverance in doing good. Galatians 6:6-10 says, "Let the one who is taught the word share all good things with the one who teaches. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will also from the flesh reap corruption. But the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith." Paul encourages us not to grow weary in doing good. And he gives this analogy of we're going to reap what we sow. And this points back to the whole don't be fake about it, because sometimes we can say that we're this, we can say that we're good, but we're going to reap what we sow. What we put in is going to come out. I cannot go and plant tomatoes and expect cucumbers. If I planted tomatoes, then that's what's going to grow. In our own lives, not only are our actions what we do, but what we take into us is true as well. If I stand on the ground and holler till I'm blue in the face that I'm a Christian, and that all you need in life is Jesus, but in my own personal life, all I'm watching is murder dramas on Netflix, what I take in is what's going to come out. That's all I'm really going to know. What we sow is what we reap. And Proverbs 1:31-33 says, "Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way." Same thing. What we sow we will reap. "And have their fill of their own devices. For the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease without dread of disaster." So we need to be doing good. And Paul says, do not grow weary of doing good. And this is not the first time that Paul says, do not grow weary of doing good. In 2 Thessalonians 3-13, it says, "As for you, brothers, do not grow weary in doing good." Over and over. Now, this expression of do not grow weary in doing good is powerful, because it's a statement of persevering. It's a statement of just continuing to do something. And I wanted, mostly because I told my wife today that we were going to go get KFC, I wanted to share a story with you. And maybe you've heard it or maybe you hadn't, but it's a good story about perseverance. The story of Colonel Sanders. In 1890, Colonel Sanders was born. I'm going to just highlight a few things. His father died, and it left him with two younger siblings. His mother was sickly, and he had to take care of those siblings. He became a streetcar conductor, a steamboat operator, a soldier, a fireman, a lawyer, and anything else that he could to make money. At the age of 40, he finally got to pursue his dream. He loved to cook chicken. He opened up a sidecar on the street. It took him 10 years before he could open up his own store. And then for 5 years, cooking chicken, he cooked at that store, and he was happy, but a highway was being built through, and they closed down the store, and he could not secure another one. At the age of 60, he shut down, and he decided that maybe he needed to retire. He was living off $105 a month off of Social Security. But he could not live without pursuing his dream. So by the age of 65, he decided that the only way that he was going to have success at his dream is if he opened up multiple stores. To do so, he did not have the money. He would have to get somebody else to invest. He cooked chicken and went to different businessmen and asked them to invest in his dream. Colonel Sanders got denied, and I want you to hear this, 1,009 times before he made his first sale at 65. 1,009 times he was denied. I'm going to be honest with you, 10 times is enough for me. I think it's not enough. You know, I'd be like, this is not successful. 1,009 times he got denied. By 1964, Colonel Sanders had 600 franchises. My daughter went off last year to Mongolia. And she was there, and I remember she would have to go into this little village because the little archaeological dig site or whatever she was on, they had no service, they had no cell phone or anything like that. She would go into the village and she would call us, and she said that there was one spot in the village where they all could take showers, and there was a KFC. That was what was in the village, right? Like in Mongolia, that's a lot. He got turned down 1,009 times. 1,009 times before he found one person that said, yeah, I'll invest in that. That's perseverance. Now, that's great, and that makes me even hungrier, but I want you to see what Paul's talking about, because Paul says, I want you to not grow weary of doing good. Do not grow weary of doing good. Now, at first, maybe that's not clicking with you what he's saying, because I think for us, that we think about when we do good, we're so caught up in our load and our work and our responsibility, our bubble in our own life, and there's a lot going on there. We got bills to pay, we're dealing with relationships, we're dealing with people, we're dealing with coworkers, we're dealing with a lot. It's summer, it's hot, and my air conditioner bill keeps going up, so I got to provide more money. There's so many things that are on my plate. For me to do good means that I have to now bump into other people. And that happens. There's plenty of times. There's people in here that could tell you many a testimony of how I just happened to be at the grocery store. Why were you at the grocery store? I was shopping for me and my family, and I was at the grocery store doing your load. And I bumped into somebody, and my eyes just were open that they had a need, and I did this and everything, and the Lord is good. You are right. The Lord is good. And in that happenstance, the Lord orchestrated an opportunity, and thank God you took it. Thank God you took it. And you took the time to do something good. I am so happy. Do you know, and I hope you know this, but do you know that the Lord wants more than your happenstance? Lord requires more than happenstance in our Christianity. He requires intentionality. He requires us to be intentional about it. The idea that I grow weary of doing good. What does that mean to grow weary? When this is used, it's not meaning like I'm digging a ditch and I grow tired. That's not the meaning of this. It can mean physical, but that's not how it's used most of the time. Normally, it's I grow weary of doing this task, and I'm mentally exhausted from doing it. In the army, we had this punishment. If you did something wrong, you had to go peel potatoes, and you would peel enough potatoes until you were mentally exhausted from peeling potatoes. Like, I am tired of this. Not only mentally, emotionally exhausted from it, spiritually exhausted from it. Now, translate to that what Paul's saying, to do so much good that you're mentally exhausted from it. Don't get there. Don't grow weary of doing it. You're doing so much that it's possible that you're emotionally exhausted from it. Don't get there. Don't grow weary of it. To the point of where you're spiritually exhausted. Don't get there. Don't grow weary of it. To the point where you're physically exhausted. Do you know how much good you have to do to get to a state where you need that warning? That's not happenstance. That is a community of believers that are intentional about going and doing good. About pouring love out to those that are around them. These are not just opportunities. This is a mission-minded, purpose-filled church. Our love for those around us and for our fellow Christians, that's the primary test that we have in our life for our love of God. This is the primary test that we have in our life to show that we love God, is how we love others. Jesus said it in John 13, and this is how we're going to wrap up this morning. 34 through 35, he said, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." As Ricky comes down today, let me remind you of what Paul's saying. Paul's saying that for Reliance to be the church that we need to be, we're not going to be a church of where people come in and they sense judgment. We're not going to be the type of church where people come in and they sense like, we're going to try to help you get your life straightened up. We're going to get you perfect. Because we're not perfect either. Instead, for us to be the church that God wants us to be, we're not going to reflect judgment but love. We're not going to reflect exclusion, we're going to reflect inclusion. When people come to church, when people come into God's community, they should feel like they're entering into a family. This is what a spiritual community is supposed to look like. And that takes work. That takes intentionality. That takes looking outside of ourselves. And that's our challenge. That's our challenge this week, and that's our challenge going forward. This morning, very simple question. Is that what you want this family to be? If that's what you want this family to be, then it's on the shoulders of each of us. Not on the ones that we're looking at, but also the person that I see in the mirror. That's on us. We can make that happen. Let us stand this morning.